I have walked on this earth for many years, and in all that time I have witnessed moments that lifted me high and moments that knocked me down and moments that left me silent inside my own thoughts. I have stood in bright lights on giant stages, and I have stood alone in dark corners where no one could hear me breathe. But among all the memories I carry, there is one that refuses to fade. It was the day I stood in a quiet place just watching a group of Muslims pray, and what I saw that day changed something deep within me, in a way I could not explain at the time. I had seen prayer before, in many forms since I came from a place where church choirs shook the walls with their voices and pastors called out with passion, and people lifted their hands high while music filled the room. But this moment was nothing like that. There was no music, no lights, no performance, no sound except the soft calling that rose through the air, and everyone in that space paused like the whole world had been placed on mute. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, not separated by rank or age or wealth, but joined like brothers, returning to the same source. They faced one direction with a quiet certainty, and when the call to prayer ended, they moved together like a single heartbeat, hands folded, heads lowered. Then they bowed and their foreheads touched the ground, and that image burned itself into me, because I had not seen humility like that in a long time, in a world that teaches us to always stand tall, always win, always be. Notice these men were choosing, instead, to lower themselves, not out of weakness, but out of recognition of something greater than themselves. I remember thinking, what kind of devotion could make a man stop whatever he is doing 5 times every single day and turn his full attention toward his Creator? And as I watched, I realized they were not just performing a ritual, they were entering a moment of peace that the world outside could not touch. I noticed the way they purified themselves before prayer, washing their hands, their faces, their feet, and even though it was only water, it looked like they were rinsing off the weight of the world before stepping into presence. I watched the seriousness on their faces, the quiet on their lips, the stillness in their bodies. I saw one man whisper a soft prayer as a tear slid down his face, and even though I did not understand his language, I understood the feeling in his voice. It was connection, it was sincerity, it was surrender that did not break a person, but freed them. I had prayed many times in my life, but not like that, not with that consistency, or that calm, or that rhythm that turns prayer into part of your heartbeat. And I wondered if maybe that was what I had been missing. Not belief, because I always believed, but discipline. Not emotion, because I had plenty of that, but structure. A moment where the world stops so the soul can breathe. These people did not pray because life was falling apart. They prayed because it was who they were and what they lived by. They did not wait for a special day or a planned service. Wherever they were, whatever they were doing, they paused and turned back to God. And when I saw them rise after prayer, their faces looked lighter, like they had left their troubles on the ground where their heads had rested. Men were praying, boys were praying, women stood covered with grace, whispering verses that felt like soft wind passing through the room. It was not performance, it was devotion. It was a community built around remembrance and gratitude, and passing that remembrance from parent to child. A child who sees his father bow every day learns humility before he ever learns pride. A home where God is remembered daily becomes a home where gratitude is lived, not spoken. When I left that place later, the feeling did not leave me. It followed me into my car, onto the stage, into my nights, and I kept thinking about that moment of absolute stillness inside a noisy world. We run from task to task, from goal to goal, from fear to fear, and somehow forget to breathe. But these people stopped 5 times a day to refuel their spirit. They made time for the one who gave them time, and I realized that peace does not come from getting more or climbing higher or being known by more people. Peace comes from alignment, from gratitude, from remembering where you came from, and who crafted you, and who provides for you. I watched those Muslims, and I understood why they walked with such calm in their eyes. When you honor God in private, you carry peace in public. The call to prayer stayed in my memory too. That sound reaching across the air with no drums, no instruments, no background, just a voice inviting every soul to peace. And when that voice rose during sunset, I felt everything else shrink. The worries, the noise, the deadlines, the disappointments, all of it melted in that sound. And for a moment I could feel what they felt. Not escape, but perspective. Not entertainment, but invitation. And then when they bowed again, when they placed their foreheads on the ground, I felt something inside me shift. I had never bowed like that, though I had prayed my whole life. But something in that posture spoke louder than any sermon I had ever heard. It was the act of saying, I'm not in control, but I know the one who is. And that takes courage in a world that tells you never bend, never bow, never show weakness. But the truth is, bending before God is not weakness. It is strength of the purest kind. I also saw unity that day. Men who had nothing in common except faith, standing equal before their Creator. Rich and poor, side by side. Strong and fragile side by side. Educated and uneducated side by side. No one taller in that moment. And that equality was beautiful. After the prayer ended, they did not rush out. They stayed still for a moment, breathing in the peace they had stepped into. Some smiled, some read, some closed their eyes to hold on to the calm just a little longer. It looked like they were recharging themselves the way we recharge our phones. And it hit me that humans need that. We need moments where we step out of the noise and into our own soul. I did not change my religion that day, but my heart changed its direction. I understood faith in a new way. Faith that is lived, not claimed. Faith that shows up not once a week, but every day. Faith that shapes the heart, not just the tongue. And I carried that lesson with me into the rest of my life. Later, came across a verse from the Quran that said that in the remembrance of God hearts find rest. And when I read that, I felt something inside me whisper that this was the truth I had felt in that room. Rest does not come from wealth or applause or trophies. Rest comes from remembrance. And these people remembered 5 times every day. So when someone asks me what I saw when I watched Muslims pray, tell them the truth. I saw discipline. I saw humility. I saw connection. I saw peace. Deep, quiet, real peace. I saw people talking to their Creator with sincerity that needed no words, no spotlight, no applause. And I saw love. Love that moves silently. Love that lives in surrender. Love that is honest and strong and pure. And that memory will stay with me for the rest of my life.